Hey, Gator Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Respect Our Decision podcast, Around the Bases, our bi weekly podcast that we do with me, Hirsch, and my man, CJ the Man McCann,
What's up, guys?
where we talk about the Gators baseball team, currently top five program in the country. Um, we've dropped a couple games, but we're going to talk about what that really means in the big picture tonight. And then we're going to get right on into previewing this Miami series coming up this weekend. So as always, guys, go out there, download us wherever you get your podcast from. And if you're checking us out on YouTube, man, do us a friendly, drop a subscribe on the channel and drop a like on the video if you'd like to see more baseball content, guys, or hear more baseball content from us. And leave us a comment down below what you see the Gators doing in the series this weekend versus Miami. All right, CJ, man. We're going through the gambit of small time teams right now. We've seen some growing pains from some pitchers. Nothing to be unexpected,
No,
especially after last night's game versus Stetson. I'm going to let you speak on that in a minute. As we take to the air right now, we're currently enjoying a 5-0 lead on Bethune-Cookman. So, I mean, taking care of business here on a Wednesday night. But talk a little bit about, we obviously said we did the preview episode a couple weeks ago, and we lost right off the rip. Oh, no. And then we lost the game last night to Stetson. I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about a little bit about it, what that really means in the big picture of the baseball season.
yeah, first, good news first. Let's go ahead and we swept Columbia on the weekend series quite handedly. We did a great job. A lot of runs scored. Pitchers looked much better. Cade Fisher had a much better night than he did his first night against St. John's. It's all growing pains at this point. Caglione looked better than he's looked in a long time pitching. Didn't go very deep. Didn't really need him to because it was we were scoring pretty well. Don't want to wear him out because you want to be able to use him with his bat. Um, and of course, I think the real star of the show was Liam Peterson, who is a guy that I've talked about. Nick De La Torre's talked about as a guy that's one of the better pitching prospects I think Florida's seen in a long, long time. I think Nick De La Torre said he had never seen a freshman at this point that ready to look that good since Brady Singer, which is super high praise. We all know Brady Singer. Brady Singer's probably the best pitcher that we've ever produced here at the University of Florida. A guy that's playing for the Kansas City Royals, a guy that absolutely torched it in college, won a national championship. Just a great player. So if Liam Peterson's half of Brady Singer, then he's a great baseball player. Really put on a show, did a great job to be as young as he is. I think somebody mentioned, or maybe it was Cade Fisher, but there was a lot of 3-2 counts, whatever. The strikeouts are what matters. Get the guys out, work the counts. It is what it is. And then you roll into this week. Of course, you have a loss against the Stetson Hatters, which I understand frustration. Do I think we should lose to Stetson? No. On paper, we should never lose to Stetson. But you've got to understand this isn't football where you just out athlete people. It doesn't really matter how strong you are, how much you lift, or how fast you can run when the ball just ain't going where you want it to go. I think the starting pitcher last night, I want to say Nick De La Torre mentioned that he had a blister on his finger that was kind of giving him some trouble. He kept rubbing it on his pants. And it might not have been too bad, but you give up a couple of hits and then it really starts to bother you. Pitching is really a mental game. If you get thrown off, it's hard to get it back. So it was his first night starting. Just let it go. You're going to lose these midweek games. At this point last year, I think I mentioned this on Twitter or somewhere. At this point last year, on March the 1st, Florida had lost 2 games at that point. Both of those were to Jacksonville and South Florida. So not exactly two really stellar losses at this point last year. I understand the trepidation. You didn't get to finish your series against St. John's. I think for all intents and purposes, I think if we finish out the series with St. John's, we probably win the last 2 games of it. We go 2-1. You win the series. Mother Nature had other things to say. I think that people can just still have a bad taste in their mouth from that. It is what it is. You just got to understand that guys are, Sully is at the point now where it's early in the season. These are teams that 90% of the time you're probably going to beat. They're teams that you should on paper always beat. So it's the best time to get guys some experience. It's the best time to take your young arms out of the pen, let them play a midweek game. Let's see what they have if they had to start. If we got in that position, you're still down a couple of guys. You're still down Kapala. Nick De La Torre says he thinks he'll be back by SEC play. Some people have said maybe even sooner. So if you get a big lefty like him back in the rotation, that's going to help out a ton. You're really just trying to see what you have in your younger pitchers, get them experience, and get ready for this stretch that's going to come later in the season when you're talking about playing your series against SEC competition. And that's the main worry is once you get into conference play. Of course, you worry about playing Florida State, and we'll talk about Miami in just a second. Those are important games, but these midweek games, typically you'd like to win them. Most of the time, you probably should win them, but it's not the end of the world if you do drop one. We saw LSU drop one to Stony Brook. We saw Gonzaga beat Vanderbilt in a series. We saw Iona beat Miami. We saw UCF beat Miami. There's just it's not an exact science. Um, Baseball is just sometimes a game of there's a lot of luck involved in baseball, just getting the ball to roll the one way you like it. There's a lot of things that just happen. You just have an off night. They were playing in DeLand. They weren't playing at home. It was on the road. Um, and Stetson is consistently a pretty good baseball team. A lot of teams struggle with Stetson because Stetson dips into the pool of talent that's in Florida. You've got a lot of guys on Stetson's team that played at Florida, that played at Florida State, that played at Miami, that played at a lot of these teams that are able to get into the chance through that transfer portal now and play at Stetson. That's what they do there. They play baseball. So you gotta really respect a team like that and understand they're not. It's not the same as playing, like a Stetson in football, a team like that. It's a whole different vibe. Even in basketball, it's different. So I think people just need to kind of cool their jets. No knee jerk reactions at this point. If you consistently are losing these games like week in and week out, yeah, you can be worried. I would be worried, but I don't think that that's the case. I think you've lost only 2 games at this point. You're not going undefeated. Last year we lost 17 games, I believe. So I mean, just we at this point last year we had 2 losses. So I would just kind of cool my jets right now and don't freak out too much because I think that this team is still very good. We've seen it with the bat, the emergence of Colby Shelton, which is exactly what we thought he would do. Guy's got a big bat. Jack Caglione's doing great. Jack is just not being pitched to. I think a lot of the guys saw what he did last year, and they're going to pitch around him, especially pitchers from Stetson and pitchers from St. John's and teams like that. They're really not going to throw at Cags. You're going to get these guys when you start playing LSU and you start playing Texas A&M, and those guys that are really confident in what they've got in their arm, they're going to throw at him. So we'll see what he does then. But right now, these guys are kind of pitching around him. They understand where they lack at. You don't want to give Florida chances to beat you with their bat because they can. We're down Cade Curland at the moment. He has an injury on his finger. So he's not playing second base. So that's a bat out of your lineup that I think is very good. Showed last year. He was almost a 300 hitter last year. Very good for his freshman season. Solid production. But you're getting pretty good production at other places. Dale Thomas, Tyler Sheldon, Mikey Robertson, Luke Heyman. You got guys that are really hitting the ball really well right now. So I think that's kind of what they need to be the focus on. There are some pitching things that you need to clean up, especially with the bullpen. Neely didn't play his best game last night. It is what it is. Sometimes you have an off night. So I think that's what everybody needs to do is just keep everything in perspective right now of where we're at in the season and exactly how baseball works as opposed to some of the other sports where, these middle of the week games against inferior opponents, it's not the end of the world if you lose them.
Yeah, you broke that down all in our season preview, and that was one of the things I specifically wanted you to talk about was what the midweek pitching was versus the weekend pitching and why it was that way. Especially early in the season, man, you just want to get these guys in their grooves. You don't have you have early practice, obviously, but it's not like MLB spring training where these guys
Right.
just work on their craft and it, over and over and over again. So these guys are feeling themselves out in their positions that Sully's got them in as far as the pitching staff goes and finding who works where. And that's going to bring us into our first big series of the year, man. And we have it every year. We get a kind of an early gauge about where we stand versus Miami. Miami historically, obviously, a really good baseball program. Maybe not the what you would say the national power that they used to be, but still a very good early barometer of where your baseball team is. So, how are we stacking up going into this weekend series with Miami?
Yeah, we're playing on the road, which is always a question mark. When Florida's typically played much better at home here early than we have on the road. Um, I think that Miami is always a good baseball team. Florida has done a pretty good job in the Kevin O'Sullivan era of really taking care of business against the in-state rivals in Miami and Florida State. Um, so historically, we've done a very good job. But Miami is going to be our first real test to see how you line up because Miami is a team that's probably going to make the tournament in some capacity. I'm not, it's early in the season. I'm not really sure, how good Miami is. They do have a couple of blemishes on their record, but I think they scored 22 against a team their last week's series against Lyon, but they lost a game to them too. They dropped one, so I think you need to take that and kind of perspective of how you look at Miami. Miami's got great talent. They're just as talented as any other team in the state because of how rich Florida is with baseball talent. It's really going to be a test. Now, see, we saw Cade Fisher get right against Columbia, but that's Columbia. Let's see what he can do against Miami. Had a bad game against St. John's. You have a good game against Columbia. Maybe you can build on that momentum. You have a game where you have 10 strikeouts. It's a great game. So you go into this game with Miami now, Cade Fisher on Friday with a little more confidence, a little more, feeling yourself, a little bit more ready for that challenge against some really tough competition swinging the bat. And I think I think that's where everybody's concern lies, and we saw some of it last year. It's just pitching. I think that our pitching isn't as stout as we'd like it to be. I think we still have very good pitchers. I think we've recruited well. Like I said, Liam Peterson is a guy that could be, our next big league star. He's got that kind of potential. We did, like I said, we have a couple of injuries with Rodriguez, and he's going to be out for the season, and Kapala, who's not available until the probably SEC play, maybe a little sooner, but definitely a guy's not available right now. So you're looking at that. You're kind of looking at those middle of the rotation guys. Early on, Fisher Jameson has done pretty well. Slater in his limited time has done okay. Kind of shaky start for Purnell the other night. Purnell's kind of hit or miss. There's some nights Blake Purnell can come in and pitch and look completely on. Watching him sometimes, he reminds me a lot of the old Yankees closer. Oh man, I'm trying to remember his name. He's got the funny name, not Rivera. Played for the Reds. Oh my gosh, I am.
Heroldis.
Yes, Aroldis Chapman. Yeah, Purnell. Sometimes there's times where he does remind me of Aroldis Chapman and how he kind of pitches. So I think that he can definitely do it. Again, like I said, pitching's just it's a mental game. You get they get a couple of hits on you. It's easy to get down on yourself. It's a tough spot being a pitcher because when you're talking about being a pitcher, especially when we looked at Neely having a rough night. Neely's in a closing job. It's tough because you've got to always have this mindset as a closer of they can't hit anything I can throw. And even when they do, you have to go the next night and have that same mindset of they're not going to hit anything I throw, which really Neely has done a very good job of up to this point. I think Neely has been a very good closer for us. So you're looking at an off night, swinging the bat. Like I said earlier, we've got a lot of good guys swinging the bat. Tyler Shelnut has been very good early on in the season. Colby Shelton is just as good as we thought he would be. He is tearing the cover off the ball. Mikey Robertson has done a really good job. Just again, I kind of talked about him in the preview episode. Just a guy who really does a good job getting on base. He's a good leadoff guy. Jack Caglione, we know what Jack can do. We know that Jack can send it 500 feet. any point. He just needs the right pitch. Ty Evans has come back now, and Ty Evans, early on was dealing with an injury, didn't play early on. Now he's back in the lineup. So you're talking about a lot of really, really good players with a lot of really, really good power in the bat. If they can consistently score runs, it's really going to help your pitching. This is a team that can score 10 runs a night. We saw it last year. They are very good offensively, can absolutely produce. So I think that's the thing. I think when you're playing Miami, we're gonna have to score a lot of runs. I think that would be the best thing. I'd hate to get into a 2-1 game going into the seventh with Miami. I'd like to be able to score runs. I think that the way our pitching is right now, I worry about that middle rotation, that middle part of the bullpen. I think that there needs to be some improvement there, and I think we talked about it last year too. Was like there needs to be some improvement there, and there was guys that showed up at that point last year. We talk about a guy now like Cade Fisher who's starting was one of those guys that was in that middle rotation part of the pitching order, uh, and he showed up, and now he's parlayed himself into a starting job. So another guy's going to have to do that. You've got a lot of young guys in there. You've got Cleet Hartzog, who's still there. You got Phil Pott, who's still here. You're talking about a lot of guys that are very talented that just need to really get a hold of themselves and do what they can do best. We've got a very good pitching program. So I think that absolutely we can recover from this. I think we're only going to get better as the season goes. It's just going to come from more repetition. It's going to come from getting out there and just throwing pitches. I think that's the only way you can get better, and that's why you see so many of these guys that in the middle part of the week when you're playing those games against Stetson and North Florida and Jacksonville, get out there and play because you need those guys to get as many reps as they can. That way you can have them just in case you lose a couple of guys. So like I said, I think that Miami is going to be a good barometer, a good test for us early on. If you can come out there with a 2-1 and win the series, that's a great sign for us, I think, going forward.
Yeah, I would. I think everyone would probably take a series win on the road at Miami. Obviously, you want the sweep, but let's be reality. Keep it in reality here and try to get a win on the road. Obviously, we won't be doing a show next week. Give us a little preview for who we're up against next week
Oh, let
before
me
we
check
get out
that.
of here.
Let me
Oh, I
get
caught
my
him off
schedule up
guard.
here.
See, we thought.
Caught me
See,
off guard. I don't believe we have another big
I don't
time
either.
opponent, Miami. I think we're going back to playing another smaller opponent. If I'm, let me just check real quick.
See, I got him off guard here.
Got me off guard. I had not. I looked at the schedule, but I was looking at our big SEC challenge. The first one should be Texas A&M. I think that's what I was looking ahead to next. But I think that you really need to get off when we're talking about like baseball. The sweep is always nice. I think we always, you look forward. You want the sweep for sure, but you really need to be focused on winning series. If it's a 2-1 win series, it's a win. I mean, and then two, if all else fails, just don't get swept. In these, especially in these early games like this, I think that's the main thing is just don't get swept. Um, Now we'll play a middle week game after Miami. We got one against Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic gave us some problems last year. They've got a good baseball team. Then Central Florida, so a little tougher. You're not talking North Florida, Stetson, but then that next weekend series is just going to be against St. Mary's. Again, is another good baseball team, baseball school, but they're not on the level of talent that we have. So they might snooker a win from us, but it's a series you should win. And then of course we'll start playing more of those games. We'll play Florida State after that in our first game against them. I believe that one's going to be in Gainesville. So it'll be our first game against Florida State. We'll play them in Gainesville, then we'll play them in Jacksonville, and then we'll go to Tallahassee. And then that'll lead us into our first SEC weekend series against Texas A&M.
Yes, sir, man. And we know we don't lose to FSU in baseball. So
That's right. FSU's got a good team this year.
yeah, they
They're
do.
winning. They're winning
So
a lot. Link Jarrett has done a good job. with that team. I thought it was only be a matter of time before he's winning. He had some growing pains last year. FSU is definitely taking it very serious, especially with this year too. There's a little extra motivation with the passing of Mike Martin,
Yeah.
legendary baseball coach there. So those guys are playing with a little extra oomph. So I'm curious to see what FSU does. They're winning a lot, doing a great job. They've got a great baseball team. So definitely won't be easy to get a win that series against them this year. But Kevin O'Sullivan's done a great job of beating FSU in the past, so I don't
Yeah.
have any
He's
doubt he can
got
do it this time.
he's definitely got their number down there. All right, man. Well,
All right.
that's gonna do it for previewing the Miami series and the upcoming week after that, man. All you want to hope for is to get out of all these games. On the plus side, obviously, more wins is better. Like CJ said, though, man, if you don't sweep Miami, if you just go 2-for-1 in that series, that's a big win on the road, man. And that's all you can ask for right now in the early part of the season.
All
Is
right.
just get away from that series with the win in the series and keep trucking on. Find your groove before SEC play gets here, man, and then just start going to town on it like we did last year.
That's right.
All right, man. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this little baseball episode. I know my man CJ loves to talk about baseball, something fierce. I love the sport myself, but I love being able to have a platform to talk a little bit more about Gator baseball. There's not a lot of that out there, and hopefully you guys like this. Like I said, if you want to see more of this content, just leave us a comment down below, guys, and we'll keep bringing it to you. But until then, guys, thank you so much for your time. Make sure you download the podcast and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, go Gators.
Go Gators.